One of my absolute favorite comfort foods in the world is cornbread. Sweet, savory, and a little spicy, with fresh corn and jalapenos baked right in this recipe. The thing is, most cornbread that I grew up eating was not plant-based. It was full of animal products. But one of the most fun parts of my vegan journey has been learning how to veganize the classics that I grew up with. And after years of testing and tweaking, I can confidently say that I've perfected my vegan cornbread recipe. In this video, I will show you how to make it step by step, so you can impress people at potlucks, serve this during the holidays, or just treat yourself to a batch of warm golden cornbread at any time. The full recipe is in the video description, along with a link to my ebook where you'll find even more delicious plant-based recipes that I've created over nearly a decade of being vegan. If you want free weekly recipes and community support, join my free community on School at plantpoweredpath.com. All right, let's get baking. First things first, we're gonna preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or 190 degrees Celsius. Once we have the oven preheating, let's grab our mixing bowl and start putting together the ingredients. We're going to add all of our dry ingredients to the mixing bowl first, mix those up really well, and then we'll add in our wet ingredients. For the dry ingredients, we're going to add 1 1/4 cups of cornmeal, 1 1/2 cups of flour. You can use all-purpose flour or bread flour for this recipe. We'll add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. With these dry ingredients, you can also add any other spices that you like. You might want to add some nutritional yeast, some paprika, or some other spices, but I'm keeping this recipe pretty basic. Once we have all of our dry ingredients in our mixing bowl, we are going to whisk these up super well and then add our wet ingredients. I am a firm believer that the best cornbread has whole corn kernels in it. So to start off our wet ingredients, let's use 1 can of corn kernels, drained and rinsed. We'll get the cans that are standard size, about 15 ounces, which will yield about 1 cup of corn kernels. Next, we'll add our sweetener. I like to use a liquid sweetener of either maple syrup or agave. I'm adding 1/3 cup of maple syrup to this recipe. I'm also adding 1/3 cup of my favorite vegetable oil, which is corn oil, which I think goes perfectly with the flavor of this recipe. You can substitute in any vegetable oil that you prefer, or even vegan butter. Next, we're going to add our vegan cheese. I like to use shredded vegan cheese, and my favorite brand for this is Violife. I get the Mexican style shreds, and I'll melt 1/3 cup of these cheese shreds in the microwave for about 30 to 45 seconds. Let's also add our plant-based milk. I prefer unsweetened almond milk for this recipe, but you can use any other plant milk you like, including soy milk or pea milk. Just make sure it's not sweetened. We'll add 1/2 cup of unsweetened plant-based milk. And once we melt our vegan cheese, we'll add that as well for our wet ingredients. Now that we have all of our wet ingredients and all of our dry ingredients, let's mix them all together super well. If you have an electric mixer or a hand mixer, it would be great for this, but I'm getting my little forearm workout in and mixing this by hand with a whisk. Just note that if you notice the mixture is too crumbly, where it is not sticking together, you can add in more plant-based milk, 1 tablespoon at a time, just until the entire mixture is sticking together pretty well, but it doesn't feel super wet or sticky. Once we fully mix all of our ingredients together, we're going to tackle the jalapeno. This might be controversial, but I think the best cornbread has jalapeno in it, or some other hot pepper like habaneros. However, I understand that everyone's spice tolerance is totally different, which is why I like to add the peppers on top in large slices, so it's super easy for people to grab a slice with jalapeno or easily take it off if it's going to be too much for them. I'm going to remove most, but not all, of the seeds. This will make sure there's still a bit of a kick, but it's not too overwhelming. Now it's time to assemble the cornbread. I like to cook cornbread in a cast iron skillet. For this recipe, you'll want something that's about 8 inches across, so either an 8-inch square baking pan or an 8-inch cast iron skillet. We're going to add oil to our skillet to make sure the cornbread doesn't stick, and then we'll add in the mixture. Add the cornbread mixture, and I like to use my hands to pat it down to make sure that it's even on all sides. This is how we're going to make sure we have the best cooking. Once it's all patted down, we can add the jalapeños to the mixture. I like to add them artistically. You can put them in any pattern you want. Just make sure that the jalapeños are pressed in slightly so they don't come off of the mixture, so they don't separate from the cornbread during the baking process. And now we are ready to bake. At 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius, we are going to bake this cornbread for 20 to 25 minutes. Around 22 minutes, I like to test it by taking a fork or a toothpick, poking the middle of the cornbread and seeing if it comes out clean. If there's any sticky residue from the cornbread that comes out on the fork, it's probably not ready yet and it might need a few minutes. But by 22 to 25 minutes, we should be able to remove the cornbread from the oven. However, I will always recommend that you let the cornbread sit for at least 20 minutes before cutting into it and serving it. That'll make sure it is cooked all the way through. And that's it. This is my super easy cornbread recipe that vegans and non-vegans will love, but this is 100% plant-based and absolutely delicious. Let me know in the video comments if you would try this recipe, what ingredients you would add in, and if you want more recipes like this, check out my ebook in the video description or join my free community on School, The Plant Powered Path at plantpoweredpath.com. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Vegan Sunny, and I will see you next time.